All right, Farid Mohsini, here we go. You're the final stop of our consultant tour. Like I don't know the number. I have to believe it's a record number of consultants that got promoted this year. But for the last X amount of weeks, I mean, last week we had Danny, and the list goes on. But you're the final stop. You haven't officially been on stage yet, but you hit all the qualifying numbers, and at our next event, you're going to get promoted to org consultant. So how
I
do you?
know.
What are
I'm
your
excited.
thoughts? How do you feel?
I'm excited about that party you're gonna throw me.
There's a handful of us. Yeah,
I feel good. I feel good. I mean, it's kind of funny because after I hit it, Cherie asked me how I felt about it, and it's I don't know why. Maybe this comes pretty common to most entrepreneurs, but celebrating little wins is not little wins. Little wins, medium wins, big wins. For some reason, I can't do it for too long. So I do I feel any different? I don't think so. Am I gonna do anything different? I don't think so. So, but it's a nice check mark, it is a check mark, and I have I'm trying to get to your level in the next 2 years here. So, well, actually, you're way above that. So, senior national. I'm trying to get to that in the next 2 years here. So, but yeah, it is. You know, when somebody asks me how does it feel, I don't really know if it feels any different than the day before where I was just considered the promoting owner. Um, and that's maybe something that I need to work on how to celebrate little wins. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I hear you. I mean, it's not the final destination. It's not like, oh, I crossed the finish line. It's almost like if you're running a marathon, like, okay,
yeah,
well, you hit the 5 mile marker, like, good job, and
right.
feel good about that because some people don't even make the 5 mile marker. It's like, oh, I got a cramp, I'm done.
Yeah,
But I've always looked at it like it's a chance to celebrate the people that I work with, like
yeah,
they're the ones doing the work. I mean, I know you're working too, but
yeah,
the leader, and they really are the horse.
yeah. I think we're losing you again, Jamie. Hmm, hmm. Well, did I text them or back to you, Heshan, take over. What's up, Grant? How you doing, baby?
Keeps making me the host for some reason.
Well, you can spit at us, Fareed. So I mean, you have to like, how's it feel and all that stuff. And you're like, I'm still getting my goals.
Yeah.
Um, what do you like? What do you feel like were some like speed bumps? So as we are growing as promoting leaders, what do you feel like are some like things where you're like, yeah, if I could have probably gone faster if I would have done these things in place better or not made these mistakes.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I've done two ownership promotions in the last 6 months. I have one more that I'm setting up for probably in the next 60 days here. But it's almost like I said this right afterwards to Sebastian when we were talking about me heading consultant. I think after your first promotion, when you do a first promotion of an owner from your office, the chances of you becoming a consultant, I think, is probably 80-90%, right?
Hmm.
Even though you still have 8 to go, it's almost like when you just promoted your first leader, now you kind of know what you're doing. Second one, you know what you're doing even more. But really the speed bump that I think about is how fast it takes you to get into that groove of that systematic promotions coming out of your office nonstop, right? I think that's probably the biggest uh that plus I made a few mistakes along the way where I promoted right at the beginning of my first year. I promoted, I think, a little too aggressive. I pushed out 5 in 12 months, which caused a whole lot of pain that I wish I was a little bit better prepped for, because coming back from that took me about 3 years to rebuild my office back to a shape where I could be geared up for another promotion. While I think if I just, took it every, 4 or 5 months, I probably could have been more systematic with my approach. And some of it, my hand was forced. I was working with a client, which was Time Warner Cable at that time, and they just didn't want to play ball and let me grow. So those are just some of the things. Obviously, COVID set us all back to some degree a little bit, right? I entered into COVID with, I don't know, about a little over 20 headcount, and I came back with about 4. So all of that was, I'm sure you guys all have similar stories. But those are just some of the you know speed bumps that I think I faced. Although the notion that I was going to hit consultant never ever changed, right? So I think after your first one, you see it, and I think to some degree you're a lot more confident, right? And confident guy playing soccer compared to a not confident guy playing soccer, they might have very similar skills, but there's a stark difference in how they play, in how they tackle, in the fact that they're not afraid to fall or bend their ankle or whatever. And I'm using soccer because that was my sports of choice growing up. So yeah, just those are, I don't know if that answers your question, Grant, but I'd probably say the faster you figure out how to automate this. Um, I have a system. I don't know if it's a perfect system, but I like my guy who's about to get out. I'm having him now train up my next guy, and what it means to come into that role as the next guy out. And at the same time, my new guys now have to not just get coaching from me, but from my last deal, as well as the hottest guy in my org, right? So it almost, you know, gels the whole leadership side pretty well, in my opinion, because somebody is literally passing on the baton to the guy in the back. I feel very confident when I do that because a lot of my office is run by my guys. I'm in there just to check the nuts and bolts to make sure everything is in good fashion. But I think it's a waste for me at this point to dive and take control of everything in my office, because that's part of the training is you have to run my office and you have to do it in a good way. So yeah, I don't know if that I rattled a bunch of stuff, but I hope that answers, your question.
Because, I don't know, Jamie, you're back. You can get back into your questions.
Hey, listen, I prefer it to be more interactive. So Grant, thank you for, obviously you're a guy who is looking to strike OC yourself here soon, Grant. So I certainly don't mind you, sharing the microphone. I just had as you said something, Farid, I recall that, right? You were on a roll. You spit out 5 deals in a short period of time, like within 12 months. So like every 2 months, you're spitting out a new owner. And I recall, so I just remember being the guy who's listening to you, who's like, yeah, at this pace, I should pretty much be, John Wiggins in about 2.5 years kind of thing, right? You had these lofty goals, you're on a roll. And
Yeah.
I hate to say this because I've seen this a lot over the years. Like I remember Andy Bruinger years ago, similar thing. And I'm just kind of like, every time I hear that, I'm kind of like, oh, the forecast calls for pain, right?
Yeah.
Like you are about to get some turbulence here, right? When you're,
Yeah.
real super confident and maybe prideful. I don't know if that's what it is, but every time it's happened to me that I start either buying into my own press or take my foot off the gas or really I don't know, it's overestimating the future is kind of what's happened to me. I've always been like kicked hard, like kicked in the butt. So do you
Yeah.
think that's kind of what happened? Do you think there's a piece of that? Is that somewhat of a, oh, I might have froze again. Is that somewhat of a warning shot for people? Like don't get too
No, Jamie, I was actually talking to EB, who was my leader when I started out, and I hate to say it because I don't know if this is something that can be trained, but I think immigrants from third world countries where life is just not easy in general, they have a higher pain tolerance, pain threshold, right? So I never thought I was going to go out of business. I never thought, oh man, this is tough. Oh, poor me. It's just, you just go through it, and you don't lose enthusiasm. It's there. I don't know if there's a lie that we believe that it's supposed to get easier or it's supposed to be harder. I think the way we were maybe just subconsciously trained by society in other parts of the world is that pain is part of life, right? Challenges, obstacles, just hardships. I think for some reason it's only in here that we're given the notion that pain should only be a temporary thing, right? And after that, it should only be glory days. But I mean, I have read the Bible a couple of times, and even Christ didn't have that, right? So, yeah. So I don't know. I think even the next promotion that I do will probably cause me a little bit of pain because I'm letting some of my best guys go. But it's the nature of the beast, and the more okay you are with it, the more I think fit you are to deal with it.
yeah.
You know.
All right, fair enough. But hopefully you don't open up 5 deals, lickety split, and start talking like you're going to be John Wiggins again. Because I smelt that one coming. I smelt it.
Well, I mean, he's set a pretty big mark, and I certainly don't. It's obviously very nice to see that other people have achieved it, and when I see that, it makes me want to achieve it. So
Yeah.
my goal is after I figured out the business, after I figured out what this looks like, the only time I'm going out is at platinum, right? So that is still my goal, and
Yeah.
I'm shifting a lot of my gears here because I have in my next unction is to make all my owners promoting owners, and hopefully that gives them that 90% confidence to run the rest of the way, right? But that's really my next phase that I'm trying to crack open and figure out how to do.
Yeah. That's great. I was just going through my notes. So we had you on this call basically 6 months ago, right? So back in May, we had you on this call. I asked you the same question 6 months ago.
Yep.
You gave the exact same answer. And I'm like, hey, what do you believe is your strength? Like, why is your crew doing well right now? Like, what's kind of your secret sauce? I'm kind of asking everybody that question. And
Yeah.
you said back then, like, well, vision casting, like I'm doubling down on vision casting. So again, just touch on this. It might sound like a repeat for anybody that was paying attention 6 months ago, but
Yeah. Yeah, vision casting is definitely my I don't think that has changed. That's been my strength when I've entered in. It's something that I've consistently um, worked on to make it even better and better. But I think here's when you have a team, the team needs to know that they can trust you. The only way they can trust you is if you're preparing for their success, if you are genuine about their success, if you're authentic, which is why I don't believe, if you're a people person, I don't believe if you're not a people person, I don't know how you can succeed in this business, right? You have to have a genuine love and connection with people that you're bringing on, that you're willing to go to bat for, right? So when you have a people group that you're really in love with, right? You count them as if they're part of your family. Then I think casting vision almost becomes a more of a natural thing because spewing out what you believe to be authentically true. I want you to win. I want you to succeed. I want you to become financially free. Um, and I think these are just thoughts that, or maybe feelings and emotions that you feel as an owner that cares about his people. And vision casting is just verbalizing that, right? So I don't know why more people aren't good at vision casting. I think it's such a simple skill set to master, because if you genuinely care about your people's success, if you care about their well-being, you know, holistically, not just financially, but emotionally, everything, right? All you have to do is just verbalize those thoughts and emotions and everything that goes on in your mind, right? When I'm driving to the office, I think about just someone randomly in my office and almost daydreaming about what success for them would look like. And then I'll come to the office and I'll literally say that to them, so yeah, I think that's just vision casting, and that's something that I try to make sure that every time I have these thoughts of a better future for somebody else, I try to talk about it. I don't want to keep that in.
I'm curious to get your take on this. I mean, the whole walk the walk and talk the talk stuff, right? Like I've seen some people they're great walkers, they walk the walk, but they don't talk the talk. And I would encourage them, like, dude, like what
Yeah.
you're saying, like, hey, verbal, like, hey, put it into words, because then there's other guys that they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. They don't back up, the
Yeah.
big talk that they have.
Yeah.
What's your thought on that? What would you say to people kind of?
Yeah, 100%. In my business, my biggest role is to provide opportunity. So if I do believe, the guys are doing the right thing and they're working for their opportunity, the biggest leverage activity for me is to make sure that every single week they have interviews, right? That's me providing the opportunity. That's me making sure that what I am saying, I'm partaking and bringing it to fruition, right? So, um, I don't, I don't think right now for me going to the field is a high leverage activity for my business. My biggest high leverage activity for my business is to make sure that my guys have interviews, which gets them closer to their goals. So yeah, absolutely. I think you have to figure out, like, if you are saying this, what is your part and what is my part, right? And sometimes, you could say this and your team doesn't resonate with it. A couple of weeks ago, I had a chat with my whole crew. Actually, we're doing really well now. We just had a $24,000 wire. We're little by little climbing up here. But about 6, maybe 8 weeks ago, we were at $10,000 wire, half the headcount too. And my team just, I felt like I wanted their success a lot more than they did. So I pulled them all into my office and I said, guys, I want to create leaders that will run markets, and word for word, I said this: I want this for you guys. And if you don't want it, that's okay. But a couple of things will have to change in the next few weeks. Either I will change the team or this team will change the way they act and talk and perform. And sure enough, all of a sudden now everybody's an alpha consistently. Everybody's, just crushing it. And we just promoted, 2 senior leaders, which is our halfway mark to assistant manager. So I have one assistant manager going out, uh, four senior leaders now in the office. But it was just me being, again, but that's part of my vision casting, right? This is what I want. This is what I want for all of you guys. If you don't want it, that's okay. I can easily replace this team with the next one. I can get a few road trips in. They'll help me train with the initial training part, but I will get to my goals by helping get others to their goals. But I don't want to work with people that have zero interest in their success for the future. So that's part of the vision casting that I think is also, you have to be very real with. Don't vision cast to a bunch of people that have zero desire for that kind of a vision. A biblical principle, right? Do not cast your pearls before swine. They don't appreciate it.
Nice.
Yeah.
You've given us a couple Bible references so far, Farid. I like that.
I mean, Jamie, Bible has so much about business, right? It's hard not to.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up the high leverage activity. hey, going in the field isn't a high leverage activity. And listen, some owners got, like last week we had Danny Giannone on there. I mean, he finished the call with us and then he goes beast mode in the field. And so I think everybody's got a different perspective. It's just,
Yeah, I
I was
agree.
just recalling like a situation as a leader. I remember when the owner was going in the field because our guys were sucking, the dollar per rep was low.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now, interviews dried up because the owner's, he's going in the field. He's been a field rep.
Right.
And I remember I had my own leaders meeting. I pulled the leaders aside and I'm like, hey guys, can we get our crap together so the owner doesn't have to go in the field? Because I'd rather him do interviews to provide me and you, obviously all of us, but we
Yeah.
don't want him in the field, do we? And they're all like, yeah, no, we don't need him in the field. We don't want him in the field.
Yeah.
And so then I had the convo. I'm like, hey, please don't go in the field anymore. We will get the job done. Just bring us some great recruits. And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah, the high
almost
leverage activity is bringing interviews and making sure that they develop as leaders, right? So a lot of your training and mentality coaching and everything. So is they have it.
Now, I hung out. I spent a lot of time with Juanice yesterday. We went down to San Diego to watch the Dodgers and the Padres. That was very hostile territory. I didn't realize how mean some of those Padres fans were, but that's okay. That's okay. Game 5 coming up on Friday. And we were just talking about, it's just life. Juanice and I've been working together for over 20 years, and so you've just gone through life. When I say life, like you're a new dad. I'm just curious your perspective because Juanice isn't a father yet. And I told him, hey, things get different when because he's like, Jamie, I'm doing team nights all the time and new guy breakfast and all this other stuff. And I'm like, when things get a little crazier when you got to juggle, more balls, and as your kids age and you get involved in your community and coaching little league sports, all that stuff. So I'm just curious, how has your business life changed with the addition of your family? And obviously you're not going to stop at one, you're going to keep going.
Yeah, no, I think having a kid is one of the biggest blessings in the world. If anything, so having Layla made me do a couple of things. One, I started actually recording all my content because I actually want her to see her dad in the midst of all of this. And I don't know if I'll be doing morning meetings in 18 years or So that was one of the first things that I decided that I'm gonna start building my own brand. Sebastian does it. He was asking me to do this for the longest time. I was like, my common answer was, Zabs, I want to be wealthy. I don't want to be famous. But afterwards, I was like, you know what? No, I do need to capture me in this stage of my career for her in the future to be able to see it. The other thing that I would say is having a kid, at least for me, it really drives your why a little deeper into the ground, which in turn brings about a deeper levels of hunger. So I have not been more pumped to push towards senior national and next level beyond that. And the reason why is not because necessarily I don't want my daughter to work in the future. I want her to work. She needs to wait, grow up with a work ethic and integrity. But not yet, but she's starting to almost look at me like I'm her hero, when I come home. And there's just an aspect of, oh, there's no way in hell I'm letting this one down, So if anything, I think my business probably benefited from a father version of Farid. And I'm not saying that I was unstable before this, but I think it just deepens the roots a little bit more. But there are some people that disagree with me, and that's okay. I personally think that's what it did to my character and to my why and purpose.
And I tell people if you need to increase your motivation or your ambition, just have a kid.
Oh yeah.
You'll be, I always wondered what would happen to me too, because I worked so I became a senior national. Then I had Dane. That's when he was born. And then funny enough, as soon as he was born, like I wanted to go to work the next day. Like I just wanted to, like, those little eyes are watching me and I just want him to see a great role model, like
I,
on every
yeah,
front. And I'm like, I want him to see me, in beast mode. But that's great that you're documenting it too. I tell owners all the time too, you don't have to necessarily publish it for the world, like Sabs has quite a big following and stuff like that, but record your stuff, even if you want to just kind of review the tape and improve your morning meeting, because you're going to run that same meeting again. I
right.
mean, so I record a lot of my stuff. Most of it never gets
Yeah.
posted because it's embarrassing. Like, Jamie, you sound like an idiot. Like, do that again. Like, get a little bit better at that.
Yeah.
But that's great that you're documenting all this, because especially, 10 years from now when you're at a different stage, like, oh, when dad was still just a
Yeah.
mere mortal small business guy, with
Yeah.
one little property,
Yeah.
So that's great that you're doing that, Farid.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. I think having a kid is a great thing for and I don't want to speak for all men out there because I know not all are created equal, but yeah, I think for me at least, I personally think Unit 7 is better off for having me be a dad.
Any biblical reference you want to give us on that one? I mean,
It's none that comes to mind. No, none that comes to mind.
hmm,
Yeah.
hmm. Yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head, so I'm not even going to go there because I'll butcher it. But I think there are some Bible verses that would support, the role of a father or mother, and like,
Yeah.
how you are really to be a leader, really for your children. Uh,
Right.
so part of that obviously is, hey, go provide, go kick some butt, be
Yeah.
successful, don't be lazy, kind of thing. So that's
Oh
great,
yeah.
Farid.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think strong fathers, and I can be argued on this, but I think I'll win. But I think strong fathers are the cornerstone of a thriving society.
hmm,
Um, you have good character, right value, strong protecting, providing fathers. I don't know. I don't see how a society fails like that.
hmm,
Um,
hmm.
I don't know. Would you argue it?
I wouldn't argue. Well, I'm trying to think of, I'm just trying to put myself, if I were a woman hearing this, be like, well, hey, mothers are the cornerstone. Obviously, the world doesn't exist without, moms.
Yeah.
Any thought on like mom versus dad? Because obviously mothers
Yeah.
have the roles as well too, but thoughts?
Yeah, they're both very important. But Jamie, I read an article before, and I might butcher the numbers, but it was an article where kids that were raised by single moms compared to single dads, and which group of kids were better off. And the kids that were raised by single moms had a higher percentage of kids that ended up incarcerated compared to the ones that were raised by single dads.
Hmm.
Same thing with single parents that would take their kids to church, right? Single mothers that would take their kids to church past the age of 18. Did this faith continue? Like, was it a real belief? It was astronomically low number compared to single fathers that were doing that.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not saying this or quoting this to say that, say mothers are not as important. I think they're both important, but at the head of the household, I think it's the dad, right? That's
Hmm.
the head of the household.
Hmm. Did it say why? Was there, I'm just curious. You got my curiosity. I'd love to read that article. I've heard some similar things too that
I gotta find it. I don't
yeah,
I don't know why. No, it didn't say it. It was just more stats
yeah.
wise. I mean, dad's the provider and the protector and the judge, right? Really, in essence,
Hmm.
of the family, and the mother is the nurturer, and she's in charge of turning the home into a sanctuary. And if she doesn't have the provider and the protector, she has to kind of like spread herself thin between both places. So,
Hmm.
um, but who knows why? Who knows why?
Hmm. Yeah, interesting conversation.
Actually, this was from Patrick Bet David, if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
Hmm.
I think he's the one that said it initially and quoted somewhere that it's been a while.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that he'd pull up all kinds of stats on something like that,
Ah.
because some would view it as, hey, that's old school, that's traditional, this is the new world. But
Yeah.
then there's others like, okay, well, what does the data say?
How's the new world working out for us?
Right, right. Yeah, no, interesting thought. Well, there might be some people that don't really want to hear that. There might be some people that, might want to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I just posted, not me, but my social media manager just posted today one of my clips where I was talking about, hey, the original design was 6 days work week, 1 day off, right? This whole notion of 5 and 2, I was like, we weren't created for this design. I got so much hate so far. And I'm just reading through it and it's pretty funny, but it's just interesting. That's where the consciousness of, humanity is almost, right? And one guy is arguing with me because I talked about a 4 day work week, how that eventually they'll probably try to push that on us, and they're saying no, a 4 day work week is great. No, that
I was going to say, last I checked, I think Sebastian's pushing for a 4-3.
no, it's not the design. It's not the design.
The design.
No,
Yeah.
if it
Yeah,
was, we would have been told, right? In the book of Genesis, we would have been told what was that, hey, work only 4, take the other 3 off.
Yeah. Right.
So
Or how about don't work at all and let the government take care of you? What do you think about that, Farid?
I think
You don't
that's
even have to answer that. I know where you stand on that one.
fastest way to steal somebody's dignity is to make sure that you cripple them and take care of them.
Mm.
You do that to me long enough, I'll forget how to work, right? So
Have you, I mean, since we're in risky subject stuff and we can end this call we're pretty much at time. You don't have to tell me how, but have you voted yet? Have you read all the stuff, the propositions and everything? You're in California like me.
I have the booklet that it's sitting on my kitchen counter. I have to read through it to know what I'm going to vote on the propositions. I obviously know who I'm voting for in terms of the president and the Congress so far,
Yeah.
and my local officials, but not the propositions part. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The little things like, in California, like it's not a crime, quote unquote, if you steal. Can't remember the threshold. I think if it's 950 or less,
Right.
it's basically not a crime, right? So people are going into stores and just looting stores. As long as it's under 950,
Yep.
you're not going to get a, felony. I don't even know if I don't think you get a misdemeanor either on that. So do you want that to be a crime? That's my common layman's terms for one of those propositions. Like I'm going to be real curious how that plays out. Like,
Right.
doesn't everybody want to see that as a crime? Like, when did that not become a crime?
Yeah. Well, the criminals don't want it to become a crime.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, I got caught stealing like a bubble gum, in a store, and the guy, he gave me a good reprimand, and I'm like, and
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that. I mean, it was like 25 cents,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he didn't call the police, but he could have called the police and could have made it a big deal. But yeah, it was 25
Yeah.
cents.
Yeah. Growing up in Dubai, stealing is a big deal, whether it's 25 cents or $500. And I remember once in a grocery store, I didn't steal this. I saw a toy, but I was really young. So I just opened it up and started playing with it without buying it. And that got me in the plaza's little police station. And I got reprimanded in there. Oh, I think I lost you. And Heshan, you can take over again.
Farid, thank you for joining us. It's 5:08 Eastern Time.
I mean, I think we're way over time anyway, so
Thanks, Farid. Great stuff.
thanks, Dean. I appreciate it. Bye, guys.
All right, thank you, bro.
Congrats
Appreciate
again.
it.